Good evening. Welcome back. It's been, 30 minutes. Gabe DeArmond here, PowerMizzou.com podcast. Tonight's show, State of the Tigers, brought to you by our buddy James Carlton at State Farm Insurance in Webster Groves, Missouri. Check him out at carltoninsurance.net, facebook.com/Carlton Insurance. You can give a call at 314-961-4800. You can talk to James about, well, first of all, insurance rates. He's going to hook you up with the best deal he can if he gives you a quote and you tell him you heard about him on PowerMizzou.com. He's also going to make a little contribution to the NIL funds, and that's a win-win-win in the words of Michael Gary Scott. I felt like I hadn't quite hung out with you guys enough. So we're back Monday night, Tuesday night. I literally have no idea what day it is. Jarod Hamilton's here. Jarod, how you holding up, man?
All I'm doing is podcasting. I'm tweeting about podcasts that I've done while I'm on a podcast. So podcasts, press conferences, practice, articles, a lot going on.
It's a day. Yeah, it's been a day. Look, guys, this is seriously, and we're not going to spend much time on this because we did this for 3 hours this morning. We've hit you with it on Twitter and Facebook. This is day one here at 24/7 Sports for PowerMizzou.com. It seems like at least day two, I would say, more than that. But look, we're trying to show you guys what we're going to do, show you this is worth it. So we hope you come over. At times during the show, I'm going to put a banner across the bottom of the screen. If you haven't yet subscribed, come join us at 24/7 Sports. We got 75% off the annual subscription. Just type PowerMizzou.com into your browser or 247sports.com/college/Missouri. You'll get there. Sign up. We would certainly appreciate it. But for the time being, we're going to hang out here on YouTube and appreciate all your comments. We're going to get to those in a minute, certainly throughout the show. While you're here, like the channel, subscribe, all that. Realistically, what we're here to do is we're going to break down all 27 outs of the Kansas City Royals 1-0 win over the Baltimore Orioles today. We talk about Lucas Erceg. We could talk about Bobby Witt Jr. We're going to do all that. But no, in all seriousness, we are going to I got to get this in. Kyle asked if I took a nap. Jarod, what did I tell you was going to happen at Media Day today? I said, I'm going to go home. I'm going to get everything done. I'm going to sit down to try to watch the Royals game. Correct. And I'm going to fall asleep and I'm going to miss it. I missed 3.5 innings of the Royals game, including the only run, because I did finally get about a 45-minute nap in. So it was worth it.
Only 3.5. That's not that bad. I was thinking you were in the 7th or something, and it's pretty decent.
No, I fell asleep in the 5th, woke up in the bottom of the 8th, so it was all right. I saw the important parts. But look, we're here to talk Mizzou football like we do every week on this show, and we're not going to waste a lot of time, guys. There's one big topic here for me, and I'm just going to throw out my opinion on this. Let Jarod kind of give his rebuttal, and we'll go back and forth on this for a little while and get your guys' thoughts. Jarod, is it overstating it to say that this weekend in College Station, Texas, determines what Missouri's season is? Because I think this game is that big.
No, it's not. I mean, obviously the caveat is 12-team playoff, you can afford to lose a game, but it doesn't feel like Mizzou can do that with Bama on the schedule.
Not this one.
Yeah, not this team. You can't afford to lose a game and knowing that's going to be an uphill climb versus Bama. Of course, they could win that game, but it just makes everything harder and you put a lot more pressure on yourself. So, yeah, win this game, the one you still probably should win, even though the line is saying -2 Texas A&M right now.
Is that what it's at now? Yeah.
That's what it was at last night when we was posting and stuff. So they should still get the win. But yeah, it's a huge game. It is probably the biggest one of the season.
Because to me, and I had this conversation, I was talking to Richard Johnson this morning on our first live show of the day, and he said he thought, Bama was basically Missouri's season. Like that game is, and I said, I actually think that's the least important game they've got left, because that's the one you just go, yeah, like you don't want to get beat 63-10, but I mean, I didn't see it because I was out of town this weekend, but I've heard enough people who did see it. That was a filthy Alabama team that took the field on Saturday and outplayed Georgia for 52 of 60 minutes, like in a significant fashion. That's an Alabama team that looks every bit capable of like 15-0 national title stuff, right? That's a Saban Alabama team with a different guy on the sideline. So it is not to say Missouri can't go to Alabama and win. It's just you kind of don't like if you go down there and take a loss in the regular season, nobody's going to ding you for it. It's not that big a deal. But if you lose to Texas A&M this weekend, you now put yourself in a position of when you go to Alabama, you kind of got to win. And I don't think that's a position any team wants to be in, going to Tuscaloosa knowing their season might ride on beating Alabama on the road.
Just hearing you say the sentence sounds kind of crazy. Yeah. It's not an ideal situation. And so I forgot what podcast I said this on. It could have been ours earlier. It could have been the 3 or 4 other ones I did in between. But you don't want to basically get to the point where to get in the playoffs, you need other people's help. You got to rely on other teams to kind of help do your bidding, and how things fell in the bye week. That's not going to happen every week, and it's not going to happen the weeks you need it to happen all the time. So definitely got to handle business this week.
And because the reason I say this game is, so let's do the positive way first, right? Let's say Missouri goes down to College Station and gets a win. There's no scenario in which they lose at UMass next week. So they're 6-0.
Mm-hmm.
There's a way you can lose to Auburn at home, but 6-0 Missouri's not like this Auburn team sucks. They're not any good. The 6-0 Missouri's not losing at home to Auburn. So if you win this weekend, you are in all likelihood going to Alabama at 7-0. Then if you lose that game, so what? 7-1, you're probably honestly still in the top 10. You've got, what is it after that? Oklahoma, South Carolina, Mississippi State, Arkansas, which, Oklahoma and South Carolina could be games that look a little better. So, the point being, a 10-2 Missouri team is going to need it to be the right 10-2 and some other teams to play well and stuff like that. Winning this weekend gives you a little bit of a margin for error where you can lose the one in Alabama, and then I'm not saying lose another one, but like you're not playing for your absolute life for the last 7 weeks of the season.
All right. I mean, it gets to the point that if they're 7-0 when they go to Alabama, I'm not saying they're playing to lose or I guess playing to, I don't know about this. Was it playing to not lose or whatever? They should obviously go down with every intention to win. But if they play kind of like how they play Georgia, where it's a 9-point loss and it's really competitive, because of where people's idea of what that game is going to be, especially consider what Alabama just did to Georgia, if it's a competitive game and Missouri's in it for most of it, even if they lose, they still may, find themselves in a really good spot, like you said, because no one's expecting anything too crazy out of that game. So as long as they don't get beat 63-10, like you just said, they'll be fine. But again, all that pressure that some people think, that's the game that the season's riding on. It's really, in a couple of days.
That's the house money game in Tuscaloosa. I mean, it really is. To me, that's the one you go down and exactly like Georgia was last year. You go down and, hey, if you find yourself in the fourth quarter, great, go take your shot. Want to thank Freeway Jarod. He's been hanging out on our shows all week and always does and always throws us a little thank you, and we appreciate that, Jarod. I'm not going to promise we're going to pass it on to Barry Odom. We might keep it, but I do appreciate that. Want to get to one other question here because we are kind of doing two things at once. Obviously, we know this is a day with a lot of change. Like I literally, guys, the last 2 hours I've been answering direct messages and emails. That's pretty much what I've been doing all afternoon, just making sure everybody's kind of set up and understands how to do this. And Breakfast King wants to know a subscription to any 24/7 site gets you access to all of them, right? So it gets you access. If you buy a subscription to our site, you can read every story and every message board on the 24/7 network. Now, the caveat is The only board you can post on is your home site. So if you sign up, through our site, you can post on our board. You can read all the other ones, but you can't post there. If you go sign up for the Tennessee site, you can post on the Tennessee board and read the rest of them. So yeah, that's one of the big things we really like about what a subscription here gets you is we're not charging any extra. The price gets you access to all the sites. So all right, we did the positive part. Let's do the negative part. What are the repercussions if Missouri goes down and loses this game to Texas A&M? So it's 4-1 with the rest of the season ahead of them.
We've already kind of talked about it. You've put the pressure on yourself for the rest of the season, or at least until the Alabama game. Now, obviously, if you win the Alabama game after you lose to Texas A&M, you kind of reset yourself. You're good. You probably do more than reset yourself. But given how hard that will be, you put yourself in a very tough predicament where, again, you don't control your fate anymore, to be honest, for the most part, probably, unless other teams, have some more wacky losses. But I mean, I'm sure some of those teams that we saw lost this weekend, I'm sure they may get a big win over someone maybe you didn't expect. You never know what can happen. So put yourself in the wrong category, in the wrong spot.
Yeah, basically, if you lose this game, what you do is put yourself in a position where you kind of have to win at Alabama. And that's where you don't want to be, right? You don't want to go. And it's not about Missouri. Nobody wants to go to Tuscaloosa. Georgia doesn't want to go to Tuscaloosa, Alabama, knowing like if Georgia wins that game last weekend, I think Georgia is almost in the playoff today. Like they're coasting, right? Losing that game didn't knock them out. But winning that game would have put them in. If I'll say this, if Missouri wins at Alabama, it's a playoff team, period. If Missouri wins at Alabama, I guarantee that is a playoff team. Because if you win at Alabama, I think you can lose 2 more and get in, right? But losing the A&M game and then losing the Alabama game, let's be realistic about what that would mean. That would mean you get to the end of the season and your best win is going to be one of Boston College, Oklahoma, or South Carolina. That to me does not tell me you deserve to be in the playoff. If your best win of the year is Boston College, that doesn't tell me we deserve a chance to play for the national title.
Another way to look at it is they're facing a team that I guess is tied for 25th in the top 25 rankings. So you're facing the 25th ranked team, and then you face Alabama will probably be number 1 when they face off. So if you can't beat the 25th ranked team, you can't beat the first ranked team, and you face Oklahoma, will they even be ranked considering the opponents they got on their schedule when that game comes up? Yeah, if your best wins are unranked, or we're talking about maybe Boston College
23rd,
squeezes in the back. Just saying it out loud is a no for me.
It's what Ole Miss did to themselves this weekend, right? They lost to Kentucky. That is not an awful loss. I mean, Kentucky's a fine team. Kentucky may end up at 24th in the country. They pushed Georgia. I don't think Kentucky's terrible. But Ole Miss is a very similar schedule to Missouri. They are now in a position, they still have Georgia on the schedule. Let's say they lose that Georgia game. Now you're 10-2, and your best win is going to either be LSU or South Carolina, and that's really all you got. And so you're going to be there at the end of the season trying to argue that you deserve to be in over a 10-2 or 11-1 Big Ten team that maybe has 2 or 3 ranked wins, or another, Missouri and Ole Miss very well may be arguing against each other at the end of the year. So that's why this game is so big. I think this game puts one, and look, I don't know if A&M is going to end the season ranked, unranked. I have no idea what A&M is going to be. I don't frankly think A&M is all that good, if you want the truth. But I just, it gives you something to hang your hat on, and it gives you a little margin for error. And Anthony Mathis says, let's focus on this game. So here's the thing, Anthony. What we talk about on this show, 0 impact. We could talk about the 2037 national title game here and whether Missouri's going to be in it. Doesn't, yes, the team should focus on it 100%. They should only be worried about this game. Nothing, the rest of it doesn't matter. They're not playing Alabama or UMass or anybody else, but like we're not on the team. And it'd be a really boring podcast if we just came on and just talked about one game and didn't talk about anything else. I mean, that's part of the fun of this, right? Is we get to look down the road and do a whole bunch of stuff that next week on this show, we're going to go, why did we spend 30 minutes talking about that? Because that was all stupid, because look at all the upsets and none of it matters.
All right. I'm right there with you.
So we covered it, guys. That's where we're at. But all right. So I know you haven't done the full in deep dive, but you've started, looking at A&M and the matchup and the players. What's the big, I guess if you're Missouri, what's the one thing you got to take care of here in this game against A&M?
The ball. I mean, I think A&M's got like 9 takeaways. Safety Marcus Ratcliffe, formerly of San Diego State, he has 3 of them. There was a streak from weeks 2 through 4 where he had an interception in each game, and in one of those games, it was the Florida game, he had an interception and a fumble. So you've got someone who's kind of like showing that he's a little bit of a ball hawk. Last week he was second on the team in tackles versus Arkansas. Then you got the defensive line. So that's really the key, the trenches. On both sides, they've got a really good offensive line, and then defensive line, they've got Shamar Turner, they've got Nick Scorton, and those are all conference caliber guys. Those are NFL guys. So winning the trenches is really going to be key on both sides of the ball.
That's the matchup there to me. Keep those guys off Brady Cook. The players of this game to me for Missouri are Armand Mimbo and Marcus Brown. Yep. Yeah, I mean those are the guys. If you've got a turnstile at either tackle, or if you've got a guy that gets beat, it doesn't even have to be 3 or 4 times. It can be the wrong one time, right? And Brady Cook gets trucked at the 15 and drops the football. That changes a game. I think Nick Scorton is probably the best player on Texas A&M's roster. Fair to say? You agree with that?
Easily.
Yeah. So he's the guy, and like you said, the other guy's he's not chopped liver, right? They got some dudes on the defense. So I think to me, that's the excuse me, that's the matchup that I'm watching, is a Missouri offensive line that I know we've gone back and forth on this, whether they've been below average, a little above average. Either way, they haven't been elite, right? They haven't been incredible. They've been somewhere between fine and a little less than fine, depending on your point of view. And I'm not interested in relitigating it, but they will need to. Is it fair to say they need their best game of the year this weekend to win this game on the line?
Yeah, I mean,
best game so far, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was about to say, if it's the game of the season, like we're saying, and they've got 2 players who play right in front of you, you've got to. You've got to. And we've talked about this, how this can impact everything. Obviously, in the run game, don't really have any problems with the offensive line. It's the pass game, and they've been trying to get the passing attack in a better rhythm. They're trying to get the deep ball going. You cannot get the deep ball going if Brady Cook is only doing one read, not because he necessarily wants to or has bad habits, but he knows Nick Scorton is breathing on his neck, So the offensive line has to have its best ball today or this week.
Yeah. All right. Want to remind you guys one more time real quick that James Carlton is our sponsor every week. His information has been scrolling across the bottom of the screen. But if you're listening on the podcast, carltoninsurance.net, you can give him a call at 314-961-4800. James was on the show with us last week. We'll hit him up again sometime, probably around Missouri's next bye week, and have him on and talk some Mizzou football with him. I mean, maybe we could talk insurance with him, but I think everybody, including James, would find that a less interesting podcast, to be quite honest. So why don't you call James and talk about insurance there, and we can have him on this show and talk about Mizzou football. Guys, this is not going to be an hour-long show tonight. I was, as I told some people earlier today, 3 hours on YouTube after 0 hours of sleep it was a decision on my part. I'm not sure it was a great one, but so we're not going to go all night here. Point being, we're going to start to get to some of your questions that I know you guys have put up, and we're probably going to wrap this thing up closer to 30 or 40 minutes than the full hour that we often go. Okay, let me see. I know they're questioned. Okay, here we go. And I'm not sure, Jarod, that you can answer this honestly, but you were at practice. Danny Ragland wants to know, like, did you get any sort of a look at Brett Norfleet? Any idea kind of how he's moving around or how he looked?
He was in his full, regular practice year. Didn't really see too much. We got there a little bit before the team, so that got into it. And then on top of everything we've got to do today,
Right.
just a lot of stuff going on. But
and we don't see a lot of full speed stuff in practice anyway.
Yeah, the first 15 minutes is stretching and field goal unit stuff. Like, you're not even going to see him at first anyway. But I mean, he jogged onto the field. He was one of the first players out there when I seen him. So I mean, for whatever that's worth to y'all, he seemed fine. He seemed okay. The only person, even Joe Charleston, I don't think he had the club that he had versus Vandy. I think he had more, other stuff on it, but it wasn't a full club that I remember seeing. So even then, so no Marquise Johnson, but besides that, everybody else pretty, they were there.
Here's when we're going to have an answer on Brett Norfleet. The first time I see him catch a pass and lower his shoulder and initiate some contact on the football field, then I'll know they're not too worried about it. We haven't seen it yet, and you're not going to see that in practice, So that's really what you've got to see before you know. We show you says, all right, this is an interesting one, and I want your take on it first. Is there any hope at all that the playbook hasn't been open much in the first 4 games? Can't imagine they've been hiding that much because Vandy and BC are different than Middle Tennessee. So where do you fall on this? Do you think that Kirby and Drink have been holding a little something back or no?
A little bit, but I don't think that's the reason why we've been seeing the struggles we've been seeing, because a lot of, some of the things we've been seeing in the passing game have been like elementary type stuff, like dropping passes. I mean, short, a drag, a slant, it's behind, it's too far in front. It's stuff like that. It's not something too crazy where you're just like, why are they trying this new play? It's not anything like that. But I do think they're hiding stuff. And I think the plan was just kind of like last year's. They probably saw A&M as that first big game, just like they saw Kansas State as that first big game. And so they were thinking, can we probably should get through these games undefeated, and then we'll start, letting stuff go. But I don't know. It's kind of both, but more so they need to kind of get their stuff together.
I don't think they've emptied the playbook, but I don't think they've just been going out there going, hey, we're just going to run dives and screens and get by either. Look, but here's my thing on the offense. I said this on the radio this morning. I don't think they're very far off, man. Like, this is not a big catastrophe, right? They are getting into opponents' territory 80% of the time they have the football. What that basically means is they need to make one more play every couple drives. They need 3 or 4 more plays per game, and we're talking about a team that's scoring 37, 38 points a game, and nobody's concerned, right? Blake Craig he's averaging 4 field goal attempts a game right now. If you take 2 of those field goal attempts away and turn them into touchdowns, just 2 over the course of the entire season, then you're talking about a team that's averaging 3.5 more points a game. If you take 1 a game, 1 field goal attempt a game, and you turn that into a touchdown, nobody's asking any questions about Missouri's offense.
All right. And
so I just don't think they're far off.
No, I mean, they're still averaging, I don't know, what are the scores? They're still averaging over 30 or whatever.
Yeah, they're averaging over 30, but like the 51 against Murray State doesn't count, and the 30 against Vandy, I mean, they had 20 in regulation.
So it was at 27, or no, 30 versus Vandy, 27 versus BC.
BC and 38 versus, so they're averaging a little over 30, but I really count Vandy as 20 because that's what you had when the game ended, and then you got 10 in overtime.
Yeah, so, and I think they were averaging somewhere between 32 and 34 points per game. See, I'm not usually as sharp as I usually am, Gabe.
You're right. It's in that neighborhood.
Yeah, so they're not that far off from where they were scoring-wise a year ago. You're right.
And I think that this is, I don't watch this offense and say this is a broken offense.
Yeah, it's
right?
not that deep. No.
I mean, I'm watching a football team right now that I watch play and go, I don't know if they can get to 20, right? You and I text about that football team.
Yeah.
That offense, that's broken. That's a broken offense. This one, like, it's a tick off. It's in. I talked about this with Bud Elliott this morning. We talked about it, I think, when you were on with me this morning. Like, you look at it and you can't even necessarily say this is the thing. This is where just something looks just a tick off. And I don't think they're far off. And look, I'm just going to be very blunt. That's why Eli Drinkwitz makes $9 million a year for these last 2 weeks to fix that one tick. And if they do that, I don't think Texas A&M can score enough points to beat them. Todd Alexander brings up a point. I hadn't seen this. Apparently, SP Plus has Missouri favored by 5.5, and the line has A&M by 2.5. Why is this line what it is? I have my theory. I think people just give Kyle Field way too much respect.
Yeah, I think the stadium and the allure and the 12th man or whatever they got going on is, I think that gives them more than the home field advantage that every other team gets. Like, how they get 3 points for being at home. It feels like this is kind of like
they get like 6
even more. Say what about?
I think A&M gets like 6 points for being at home.
Yeah, and so I think their home field advantage is probably better than their actual team, to be honest. So that's kind of carrying. And then the last thing people saw is Missouri going into double overtime with Vandy. And even though Vandy looks like they're better than what they usually are, still Vandy, and you were still you were 7th at the time of that game, 6th or 7th. That can't be the last thing people saw of you going into a game versus a team who's won 4 straight, even though not the greatest opponents, but.
So I'm going to read this from my 10 thoughts, which was posted at midnight last night. Texas A&M is 60-23 in home games since joining the SEC. However, they are 34-1 against non-Power 5 opponents. So at home, Texas A&M is 26-22 against Power 5 opponents. That is, let me get my calculator here. That's a winning percentage of 54.2%. Okay, so in road games, in that same period of time, A&M is 41-32. That is a 56.2. They actually, like, I'm going to assume most of their road games are Power 5 teams, right? Like, there might be a couple of them, but they don't go on the road and play a lot of non-Power 5 teams. The home winning percentage is 54% against Power 5 teams. The road winning percentage is 56. Kyle Field's big. It's loud. There's a lot of people. It sways around. It's not the hardest place to play in college football. I liked what Brady Cook said today, and look, I'm just gonna crap on our field. Not the football field, our field as in our industry. How loud is it is such a lazy storyline. Like, we got to quit asking this 27 times every week. I respect Brady Cook. He said, look, guys, I can't hear him practice either. He said, once it's at a certain point, it's just loud. Like, I don't know how much louder than loud is going to be loud. It's just loud. And yeah, it's hard to hear. And hey, we have hand signals that we use if we can't hear the call at the snap, but we do this every day in practice. And he made a good point. He said, when I'm on the field, I don't really hear it. Like, when I'm at practice, they're blaring these speakers where this backdrop is right behind me. When I'm at a game, like, everybody's kind of removed and I'm not really focused on it. Like, it's not that Missouri can't lose in Kyle Field. It's just that if they lose, it's not going to be because the game's being played at Kyle Field.
Correct. It's going to be probably because Missouri, I wouldn't say if they lose this game it's because they kind of sleptwalk the same way they sleptwalk versus Vanderbilt. I just think that Texas A&M probably roughed this game up, made it a between the trenches run type of game, and they won their style of game. They made Mizzou play the game they wanted to play. That's how they probably win this game. But I don't know if it's so much because there's, it's the largest stadium in the conference or whatever, it may be. They played at Florida a couple of years ago and they were in that game, and that was a much worse Mizzou team. It's not like they're foreign to playing in big stadiums. It's not like they're foreign to playing in Georgia or whatever. They're in the conference. They know what these stadiums are.
You know what's really damn loud and nobody talks about it? Williams-Brice Stadium. It's South Carolina. That's a tough ass place to play, man. I think that's a harder place to play than Kyle Field, if you want the truth. So we'll see. Nick says, talking about what Bud Elliott said this morning on our show, defenses are kind of begging Missouri to beat them inch by inch. I think A&M being a good defense will help open us up, open the offense up. It could. I'll be interested to see the approach from A&M, right? Whether I mean, there's a bunch of different ways to go. You know, hey, do they? I don't think they're going to sit back in like this deep zone like maybe BC and Buffalo did. You know, I think they're going to be a little more aggressive, which should present Brady Cook a handful of opportunities during the game to make a big play. And at some point, they got to make a big play.
I'm really interested just to see what the game script for Missouri is. Are you going to feed the hot hand in the running game, or are we going to go back to the tried and true and see if we can get the passing game going, quicker, faster, not earlier?
Here's the other thing about the Missouri offense. Everybody thinks that a big play has to be a 55-yard throw in the air.
Doesn't.
Why can't a big play be a 7-yard slant that Luther Burden takes 60 yards? Why can't a big play be Josh Manning breaking a tackle and picking up 40 on a 10-yard pass? And we haven't seen a lot of that.
I will say it is a difference, though, in doing that. One, that relies on your playmakers too much to do a lot of stuff in space. They've got to create all of that. And so, they should be able to do that. But
I mean, if you run the right route and Brady throws a good ball, they don't necessarily have to.
And that's something they haven't always done. So your point is valid, but you don't want the defense to be able to crowd the line of scrimmage, knowing you're not throwing over the top, and we can kind of cut off a certain aspect of the field because we know you can't or will not try to do it.
Here's the other thing about a big play. That Luther Burden touchdown in overtime against Vandy. They could have been 400 yards from the end zone, and that was going to be a touchdown. Like, that's how open he was, right? It just only happens to be a 25-yard pass because they had the ball at the 25-yard line. So, there's a chance that you don't get a big play where if you're at midfield, everybody's like, oh, 50-yard touchdown pass. This is awesome. So there's a lot that goes into it is my point. Jason, bigger worry, offense not scoring touchdowns in the red zone or the defense allowing big plays?
Easily offense not scoring touchdowns in the red zone. Like, the defense, they've allowed 6 touchdowns. 4 of them have been blown coverages, so you can't have that. But I feel like that's more of a discipline thing that they can fix. Just stay with your guy, players in the secondary. For the offense, this is a problem that's gone back to last year. They've been saying since the middle of last season, trying to fix the red zone offense to score more touchdowns. I mean, 38% of their converted red zone attempts last year were field goals. So that's an issue that's been going on multiple seasons. It's definitely that to me.
I like this question. What happened to Luther and the Wildcat? First game last year. They ran it 2 or 3 times, and we've never seen it again.
I guess Drink just said Drink gave all the power to Kirby. He's not saying anything.
I mean, you've had 2 weeks here. You telling me you can't teach Luther Burden to run the zone read?
I've always wondered why
stick the ball in Nate Noel's gut or Marcus Carroll's gut, read the defensive end. You get Luther Burden on the edge from the 4-yard line. Who's tackling?
I mean, I've always thought, why aren't receivers, just in football in general, not used more, in the backfield and stuff like that. So yeah. I get it.
Yeah. We show you. Do you think they're going to give a lot of help to whoever blocks Nick Scorton?
I think if he's on the left side, I don't think so. I think if they were, it would probably be to Marcus Bryant's, because I think Armand Membo is having a really good season. I haven't really thought he's not doing anything he's supposed to or something like that. But I think Marcus Bryant, he's huge. He's pretty agile. Is he to the same caliber as Nick Scorton? Well, we'll find out. But I don't know. Not early on, I can't guess that. I mean, that's why you bring a guy like him in, so you don't have to worry about trying to chip or something like that every time you're playing a premier pass rusher. But
here's what I wonder. If Brett Norfleet is still whatever Brett Norfleet's been the last couple weeks and not the full version of Brett Norfleet, could you turn this into a little more of a Jordan Harris, Tyler Stevens game where your tight end is kind of a 6th offensive lineman? You send one fewer guy out in pass routes and you've got an extra guy whether it's on Scorton's side or the other side, to make sure you got Brady Cook staying on his feet.
Well, that becomes the game of, well, now you're probably knowing what we're going to do if, just based on personnel, if Harris or Stevens are out there, we're probably going to run. But at the same time, Texas A&M, Missouri would be saying you still have to stop it. So they could, but kind of pick your poison type of thing of what you want to do for the competitive advantage that Drink is, always talking about.
Yeah, Tim Reynolds, appreciate the super chat, man. Thanks for hanging out with us here. A lot of you guys probably were here this morning, probably back tonight. We appreciate that. It's been a long day for us, but a long day for you guys too. And I'm sure most of you actually went and worked a real job between these two shows. So appreciate you hanging out with us. I can't find it in the chat, but somebody asked earlier if we have a timeline on Marquise Johnson. I don't really think we do. I mean, Drink acted like it was no big deal after the last game, but Drink, I think, kind of always acts like it's no big deal.
Yeah. So after the last game, I remember talking about Marquis. I think it's his left ankle in particular. I think. Mm-hmm. I got a 50% chance of being right. So
right, exactly. I like how Gary Pinkel would always say, "Yeah, he's got an ankle." Well, Gary, he's got two. I mean, one of them's hurt. I don't know which one it is, but
yeah, he made it seem like the bye week would be enough after the Vandy game. Obviously, that doesn't seem like the case. I mean, if he didn't say this today, but I'm guessing his status as of right now would be doubtful. And then by the time the SEC stuff comes out or whatever later in the week, he'll be out. Maybe next week, but we didn't get it. We don't know if it's a high ankle sprain or what he did to it exactly. We just know it's an ankle.
All right, I'm going to put this one up just for you because Floyd the Barber is going to let you preach here. Why aren't we leaning on Noel in the running game like they did Cody Schrader?
Because they just want to figure out the passing game. I feel like we say this all the time, you and I, off camera, as far as like the Chiefs and the Tigers have very similar games in the same weeks, in the same weekends. And so I feel like Drink sometimes and Missouri have kind of a Andy Reid to them where they force things a little bit too much because they know they can do it and they don't have to. And so that's a little bit what it is. Also, they just think like Nate Noel's been kind of, I guess, not load managed as far as the game, but people are treating him so fragilely because he's, maybe 190. I don't know why. He's proven multiple times in his career he can have this type of workload. Now you don't even need to do it for the whole season, just until the passing game starts clicking a little bit better. I don't know either why they're not running a little bit more.
See, I'm on John's side here. He had 24 carries for 199 yards. How many times do you want him to carry the ball?
I think they could have carried it
40.
My thing is, I think they should start running the ball sooner. I think they should start the game running. They don't start the games running. They started always trying to pass, and they get a 3 and out. And luckily, the defense has stepped up and not really allowed anything. But then that's when they start running after drive. So that's another 4 or 5 carries, is what I'm saying.
Okay, I will listen to that argument that they need to try to get to it sooner. But it's not as simple as, well, if this worked for 20 plays, it's going to work for 40 plays. Like, you can't just hand the ball off to Nate Noel. Defense is going to figure that out. And then you know what's going to happen? You're going to be in a tight game and everybody's going to go, why do we just run the ball all the time? We can't even throw the ball.
I'm not saying to add 40 carries. I'm just saying maybe 4 or 5 and you start that. And those 4 or 5 come earlier in the game to get it going. So instead of going
right, I'll listen to that argument. I agree with that.
Yeah. So I'm just saying, and even if it's not him, I like Marcus Carroll. I mean, didn't have his best game last time out, but besides that, he's been really good. So
it seems to me they've turned him into a short yardage back.
Yeah, but I think part of that is because of how well Noel is. Why put Carroll in to get his 12 for 60 when you got somebody going for 100 consecutive games?
Right. I think you could see a game this year where Marcus Carroll has like 22 for 130. I think that's certainly possible.
Right.
Is it an issue that when we see Jamal Roberts on the field, we know it's a pass? I mean, not really, because it's usually 3rd and long anyway. Like, I don't think he's in the game on 3rd and 3 a lot.
No, I mean, he's had some red zone snaps as well. I mean, he got a couple touchdowns on his resume for this year, but
that was early though. We're talking the last couple games.
I guess those were the first 2 games. I mean, I look at it this way: if you have another person you can trust out there, especially in pass pro, I mean, to get on the field, they said for at running back, they're always like, you have to be able to not fumble and pass protect. So if you can be that guy and you can spell your top two backs, I don't really look at it that way. I mean, the next thing I would say is, can they start dumping the ball off to him? So I'm like, that's the next step, because I haven't seen him really get any targets, but I don't think it's too much of a problem.
Yeah, because I would say, like, look, if it's 3rd and 8, I don't care who the running back is. They know you're throwing the football. And you know what, Mark? If Jamal Roberts can go out there for 8 third down snaps where he's either going out for a route or picking up a rusher, you know what that gives you? That gives you 8 snaps where Nate Noel's not taking a pounding, running into a 240-pound defensive end. And that gives you maybe 3 or 4 more times he can run the ball during a game. So yeah, I think every team has a guy like Jamal. Like, 3rd down back is a thing for a reason, right? It's the guy that just, I mean, it's the Jerick McKinnon. You're not really in there on 1st and 2nd down, and we might hand you the ball every now and then, but mostly when you're out there, we know you're either going out on a route or you're pass blocking. Every team has one,
right?
So, all right. Aaron Young wants to know, how many rushing yards does Brady need for us to win on Saturday? I don't know a number on this, but quarterback run game hadn't been good, and I'm not sure why.
I couldn't even throw a number out there because hasn't been nothing really
like 5.
I don't know, which is crazy.
What about this? Brady Cook's a good scrambler. Brady Cook's not a good runner. Does that make sense? Play breaks down. He has to get out of the pocket. He's fast enough to make a play. Designed run, I haven't seen it work a whole lot, except the only exception is when he does that little fake pitch and everybody goes one way and he kind of cuts back up. That play works, but that's because it's deception. It's not based on him making a guy miss or outrunning somebody to the corner. Like, I think Brady can be effective with his legs, but I don't think he's a good designed run quarterback.
Yeah, and considering I'm guessing most people watching this are probably Chiefs fans, or you see Chiefs fans a lot. I don't want Patrick Mahomes doing design runs. Now, if you're passing the ball and you're like, play breaks down, Patrick run, it's a whole different situation, you know? And so I think, first off, Brady Cook is more elusive than Patrick Mahomes. He's faster than him and he can make moves happen. But when they start doing the design runs and stuff like that, it's not really his best suit, especially now knowing what he can do. It worked a little bit better in 2022 when the pass game wasn't all that and no one wasn't really expecting as much, but he can pass the ball and you've got the talent. He shouldn't even be doing design runs. Get the ball to your playmakers.
Yeah, the design run should be a like a trick, a change up, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you run a quarterback draw when nobody's expecting it. Look, guys, I'm going to cut it off here. Appreciate all the comments, all the questions. Appreciate 150, 160 of you hanging out here with us tonight. Everybody that was here this morning all day long. It's been, I think, a first day here at 24/7 that has, I would say, exceeded our expectations, exceeded their expectations, hopefully exceeded your expectations. We're gonna keep it going. Jarod leaves for College Station on Friday, but he's gonna have a ton of content before then. I talked to Drew King earlier today. He's got a basketball recruiting board going up for you guys. Sean Williams is working his butt off with the national team covering recruiting. I'll have the mailbag for you. Plenty of podcasts, plenty of interviews. I'm going on with the Cover 3 guys tomorrow. We'll have that for you. So all kinds of stuff. Appreciate you listening. Appreciate James Carlton sponsoring this show for us as he does every single week. Once again, call James 314-961-4800. You can get him online at carltoninsurance.net. While you're here, like, share, comment, subscribe, do all those things. Share it on social media. We will talk to you next time. Thanks for hanging out.